All right, we interrupt this live stream here to introduce our next guest as we're going to be talking with him on the podcast broadcast. He's performing at the Rialto Theater on a Thursday. That is March 28th, and there's still some few tickets available. We got the one, the only Drew Lynch, everybody. Good morning, Drew. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning. I love coming
Good
into a
morning.
stream. I love coming into a stream where the first thing I hear is, and the big concern with cokeheads is, I was like, I might not be in the right place, but I'm gonna still do this.
Check the invites real quick.
Yeah, don't worry. It's not
Oh.
a cocaine themed show today. You know, we
Well,
did.
Well, then I'm
I'm gonna
definitely in the
catch.
wrong place.
Never mind.
Yes. No. Okay. So we're gonna talk with Drew. I got to play music from Cracker, but we're keeping the conversation on the podcast broadcast. We're live right now, YouTube.com/BeFegan and more with Drew Lynch right after Cracker's Low and Rock 1 2.1. So don't go away. Clear. All right.
Crackers and cocaine. What a start.
So I'm thinking crackers and cocaine. I'll catch you up real quick, Drew. First off, thank you for joining us. So we're doing a podcast broadcast. So we go back and forth live on the FM side on 102.1. And of course, we're live streaming right now. And then the cocaine, the reason why cocaine was even brought up was this crazy story about a man who got busted with rollerblades, and in his wheels, there was cocaine, but it wasn't like cocaine stuffed in the rollerblades. It was infused in the rollerblades, right? Like
the actual blade.
Yeah. So it's plastic. It's basically, you remember like Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke?
Yeah.
That movie, you know how they made like a van entirely out of weed? That's where we're at with cocaine now. So it's a cocaine gelatin that was in the wheels of the rollerblades that they discovered. So what people do, what they're doing now, I guess, is taking these like rollerblade wheels and, breaking them apart, taking the gelatin and making pure cocaine out of it.
That's insane. I guess is it for transport? Like this is on the smallest scale of input output. I don't understand why they're doing this.
Well, it's being shipped in directly from Colombia.
As rollerblades.
Okay, my bad. All right.
Rollerblades.
That's why. Okay. I guess in my head somewhere I was thinking like, no, he's on the rollerblades. That's where my head was.
Nobody else.
And I was just like, I was like, that's how he's getting it across the border. They're like, yeah, no, this guy's just rollerblading. Let him go.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, we don't even need the dog to smell him. He's just a rollerblader.
Just having fun.
Yeah, he's just chilling.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
He's
fine. That's wild. Yeah, you never said that. You never said that he was on rollerblades. I guess in my mind I was just like, oh, he's on rollerblades.
That's way funnier.
I mean, I think that's slang in 2024. When somebody's on cocaine, you just tell them
you're on rollerblades.
Hey, you're on rollerblades, man. You're obviously rollerblading your balls off.
Are you blading right now, dude? You're blading.
He's swerving on those blades, man.
Yeah. Speaking of which, where are you at right now? You at home?
No, I'm in Boston right now. We just did shows here, so I travel out today.
Oh, nice. Okay, and so this tour, which you're making a stop in Tucson for, how long is this current run that you're going to be on?
I usually do shows this like winter and springtime, and then I take off for the summertime, and then I come back usually with new material for the fall and winter tour. So
nice. Where's your home base?
I live in LA, but I have family in the Midwest, and I grew up in Vegas, and so I know people pretty much like all over the country. So it depends sometimes if I want to extend the stay or come early for a place whenever I'm doing a gig.
Yeah. So where do you then, if you're like in LA, do you do stage time in like Comedy Store? Where do you work out new material?
Yeah, usually the Comedy Store and the Factory, and then the Improv is always really good to me too. Those are the main three, and those are pretty much my home clubs there.
Nice. Well, how much like open mic time, so to speak, would you have to do before you put together a like new hour before you take it on the road?
That's a great question. I think it really varies for everybody, but it also varies from bit to bit. Like sometimes you'll end up trying something and it's just like you're so lucky to have it just kind of like go. It's just, I've tried stuff that it's kind of like it has its legs the first time you run it, and you're just like, oh man, I just got to fill in some details, and I'll keep working on it. But there's other times where you're really headstrong about an idea, and it's just not translating, or you don't quite have the beats down. So I think that skill set gets sharper the more you do it. But I don't know, man. I write like a mad person when I'm in like my summer time off. So I you know I it can take it can vary.
Yeah, we're talking with comedian Drew Lynch live on Rock 102.1 KFMA. It's a podcast broadcast, talking about how much time you kind of put in to material when you're not on the road before you debut the road. And I thought it was also interesting. You talk about the beat, like the rhythm of a joke, right? Which I don't think a lot of fans of comedy or comedians realize that there is. It's essentially like writing a song. There is a rhythm to the perfect joke. And you kind of have rhythm in your own right. Actually, you just posted something on TikTok that I want to start off with sharing before we start catching up. That in a way, it's like you have bars. It was like a poetry slam, or you were just like acoustic rapping. Talking about your wife's ADD. And again, this was just posted. I just want to share this with our audience real quick. I think it's funny as well. So check this out.
One of the things I really love about living with my wife is seeing how long it takes her to leave the house after she has declared that she is leaving the house. I love it because her mouth announces a profound amount of I'm heading out, but her body still occupies a lobby of lies and mockery. And the boy would be a yay if I could actually celebrate her leaving it, but she proceeds to visit every room in the hizzy like some kind of doom Roomba, sucking the life out of my day.
Bars.
So on her way out, she gets a drink because she's thirsty, does the dishes since they're dirty, checks the curtains that are crooked, is uncertain with her makeup, but decides that it's too late now, so she beelines for the exit, but her bladder's full of liquid from the bevy from the kitchen.
Bars.
You have traveled farther than she ever will. And so I smile while she heads to the bathroom, but I don't wave because I know my hand will get fried if I try to goodbye the random meander panda who can't seem to handle a day without understanding she doesn't have an ankle monitor on.
What you got, B-Rabbit?
Good morning.
I do want to put that over the Eminem and the 8 Mile clip.
Yeah. When you do something like that, is this I'm assuming that it's not off the top of the head, something that you wrote. Do you write it where it's almost like you hear a song or rhythm in your head and you're writing like a song?
Yeah. So I end up I've battled with stuttering for a lot of my adult life, and what my speech therapist, I don't go as often as I used to, but my speech therapist was like, you've been doing really good, you've been doing really good with a lot of these exercises. A good sort of practice is getting something into the rhythm of a song, or getting something into the rhythm of like poetry. And I was just like, I don't do that. You know what I mean? I was like, yeah, I mean, I do stand up. If I see a poet in the street, I'm gonna kick his ass. So I don't but to be honest, like every comic is, or every person is trying to find their own little way to be creative online, or find whatever they want to do to still like produce content. And I thought, there's so much about the format of just kind of like walking around and ranting about like a subject. And yeah, a lot of this stuff I write, I write it beforehand, but it's a way to like kind of not really get rid of material or burn material, but also still write something. And it's still comedic in nature, but it's a different part of the brain. It helps me with it helps me with speech and trying to rehabilitate that side of my brain. So it's just like those I just started doing, and I think people have responded to them in a positive way. So we just kind of keep doing those because they're endless. Like there's so much material that you can get from them. And there's a lot of things that people don't know, that like somebody like Ed Sheeran, he was somebody who he had a stutter, and he ended up rapping in order to, he would listen to like Slim Shady in order to combat that. So there's just nothing but positives that can come around from something like that. And I love the idea of just like doing a whole thing, and then you're walking, and then at the end you just say good morning, like that's the first thing that has happened that day. And so that's kind of where that came from.
I mean, there's a lot to take away from that. One, I mean, just the algorithm of TikTok, something about walking and talking definitely, gets a big boost. So to realize the art of social media and how to get your content out there is very difficult, and then find a gimmick to go with that. But also the verbal exercise. You talk about stuttering in your stand-up all the time, and like if you're listening to the stand-up on stage, whether it's America's Got Talent or through your comedy specials, you would never think in a million years that you're someone that has suffered from a stuttering problem. It's so intriguing and fascinating to me that something like a verbal exercise, like putting together rhyme schemes, it could be something to help you overcome a stutter. And then to be able to memorize that. So how quickly does it take you to memorize like a bit that we just heard?
Sometimes it can take like sometimes it can take like a day. Sometimes if it's like, sometimes if it's from the heart, like that one, it can take a few minutes. We're just like, we're like, all right, one and done today. We're all right. Let's wrap. So yeah, it's it is something that, and like there was an interview a few years ago that came out about Steve Harvey. He was someone who had a stutter, and a lot of things that he did. One of the things he did to practice was he would walk across the room while talking out loud. And I realized that as I've gotten older and more confident, a lot of my stand up, I end up walking around anyway, just because going through the motions of that exercise, and making sure that you can keep your rhythm, and especially if you're not trying to overthink the timing of a certain moment. So I think like the combination of the rhythm and the cadence and the walking is all just beneficial for somebody like me, who has to deal with a lot of this shit.
Yeah, well, even walking around on stage, though, that's just good public speaking. You're keeping the audience's attention, and it's also helping you unbeknownst to them. Is there a line that sticks out in your mind of like a rhyme scheme, like of a rhyme that you step back and you're still super proud of? You're like, actually, that was pretty sick.
Well, yeah. I mean, like, I think the foundation of stand-up is actually pretty similar to the foundation of, I guess, like rap or slam poetry. Like,
I agree.
if I was really lucky in that one of the positives from my injury was when you're battling with stuttering, you're really taught to edit. You're editing all the time on the fly so as to not lose anybody's attention, especially if you're on stage. So it really teaches you the importance of word economy, and it teaches you that the last sentence, or the last word, or the last two words of a sentence can really change the whole context of a sentence that you said beforehand. It can change the whole meaning of it. And with rap, or like they do the same, like you hear sometimes like where you think something is going one way, and then the very end of it is said and it changes the whole context of it. So that, I think, is it's really easy to make that sort of transition from doing one to the other if you have the foundation of the understanding of that level of writing.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree on that. We're talking with comedian Drew Lynch, who's performing at the Rialto Theater on Thursday, March 28th. Tickets available at drewlynch.com. We're continuing the conversation on the podcast broadcast. Be back with more with Drew right after these words on Rock 102.1. Clear. Now, you mentioned the injury. What was the injury?
Sure. I had a softball injury when I was 20 years old. I got hit in the throat with a softball. I had fallen and hit my head on the ground, and I had a TBI from it. And it messed with my whole my motor skills, my speech, cognitive function. It was just a whole mess up of a thing. Like it messed with my whole plans that I had. Like I never wanted to do stand up. I never wanted to even, like, I always appreciated it, but I didn't see that as my trajectory. I moved out to Los Angeles when I was really young. I moved out to LA when I was 19 so I could pursue acting. And my first year of being there, I'd had a manager, an agent. I had some momentum with, like, I was on hold for like CBS and Disney TV shows. So, when that happened, it couldn't have come at a worse time for me. And I couldn't get hired anymore or anywhere as an actor, and no one would send me in because of the ramifications and the aftermath of why I wasn't able to control my speech. And so then I still just felt like I didn't want to kind of roll over. I didn't want to just be now nothing. I definitely didn't want to be a disappointment to my friends or my family who had believed so much in supporting me and even moving out there in the first place. So I had some comics who they had kind of encouraged me to go on stage and just start talking about the injury. And I think that's kind of a cool thing. Like some people do comedy because they're extroverted in nature, or they just like being in the spotlight or whatever. But I think there's a lot of us who, we've got something messed up that happened, whether it was in our recent past or a long, long time ago, that of course we use humor to try and combat that.
Absolutely.
And that was
For
just
healing
kind
and all
of,
that.
yeah. So that was just kind of the perfect way for me to be able to talk about it, get comfortable with it, make self-deprecating jokes about it, and hopefully try to cope.
That is amazing, dude. And honestly, like like an inspiring story of like you had a goal to go out into Hollywood and to make it, right? And initially you're going in as acting, and honestly, I had no doubt you would have made it in that, and you could still now make it, but now through a different lane, because then you get this setback, and it's a major setback. Right. And you ended up teaching yourself a new skill, taking this tragedy, finding inspiration from it, and creating art, and getting to a point where, you are a stellar stand-up comedian. To be on America's Got Talent, right? And to get a golden buzzer, or even just with that audience, and to compete, to get second place in where you're competing against like circus talent and singers. This is not a comedian show. It's a very difficult show to achieve success on, and to be able to do that and translate is mind-blowingly amazing. You just have it in you to you set yourself a goal, and you're going to achieve that goal, huh?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. Yeah, and it is very much that. I feel like I've always been self-motivated, but at the end of the day, it was really a no-brainer decision. It was a no-brainer decision because like I just didn't want to be, it was just like all the other you're backed into a corner. You really have no other options. Your only other option is to try and just to try something, and when I did even America's Got Talent in 2015, I was super young. I was super young into comedy, but we're just really, really young in general. And that show was kind of the perfect platform because it teaches you, like it allowed me to be able to showcase what I was there to do while also telling my story,
Yeah.
So that was such a blessing for being able to do that show. And you're absolutely right, that show is not built for comedians. We're kind of given like a minute of jokes, and you have to try and punch in a bunch of jokes in a short amount of time, and couple that with the fact that I already had a time constraint kind of built in. Like that was also such a stressor for me. And you're also going up against people who they're novelty acts, or they have their spectacle acts, and so they, you could be a magician with a huge turn, and the magician has like the magician has like 9 minutes. That would always be something that was insane to me. It's like the magician's like, listen, I gotta make this girl go to France, and then she appears in a glass jar, and she's holding my chihuahua, and you're like, what the? And he's like, all right, I'm gonna need 30 minutes for it. It was always something like, and the trick's amazing, but it does absolutely need that amount of time. And then it would be like, all right, and then we've got Drew coming on, and like
2 minutes.
Hit us with a joke up top. Yeah, exactly.
Or like 30 seconds, dude.
Yeah.
Funny.
So,
special treatment.
Yeah, so it's that, and it's just, all you have is your brain. That's it. You just have your brain, your experience and delivery. And there's a lot of other people who, if you're a singer, or if you're a dance troupe, or if you're a dog act or a magician, there's a setup in some way or another. And and so it is really comparing, apples to wrenches in that.
Yeah. And so when you went into this competition and what you saw, essentially how it was structured, what you were going against, did you give yourself a shot in hell, or you're just like, well, here goes nothing?
Do I need to learn fire breathing?
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. I definitely did not. I definitely did not think I was going to get as far as I had, or get all the way to the end. I mean, and by the way, I never at one point saw getting to the end until I was at the end, and then I was like, well, I would like to win it now. It was like the last week, and I was like, I think I want to win. Like before, I was just like, I think this would be cool to do this. This would be fun. Wow, they keep inviting me back. This is insane. And then it's like, it's like you run a marathon, and then you get to the, you start to see the finish line, and you're just like, all right, now I guess I'll try to win it, And so when I auditioned for the show, I remember it was the day after Valentine's Day. I was super hungover from like champagne the night before or something stupid. And I woke up like at like 5 a.m. or something, like something silly. I woke up at 5 a.m. to stand in line at like 5:30, and I was there standing in line for like 3 or 4 hours just as early. And then you have to go in with everybody else. And then once you audition, it's not for the judges, it's for producers. And then they pass you along to another room where they ask you a bunch of questions, and then you fill out paperwork, and then they pass you along to another producer. Who's like the exec producer. And if you audition for her and that's approved, then she sends you to the room of like there's like 7 people on laptops and asking you questions, having you audition. And
it's like a fighting game. Those people next level. Boom, boom, boom.
100%.
We're speaking with comedian.
Hold
on 1 second. Sorry about that, Drew. We're speaking with comedian Drew Lynch on the process of America's Got Talent, and going through audition process with the champagne hangover and basically the meat factory routine, and go one room to the next, to the next, to the next. Are you doing the same minute when you do that? Over and over, like. You want to hear the joke I just told your friend?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I think one of the things that really helped was it was like a very loose minute and a half audition. I would kind of make a joke, and then I would comment on the joke and comment. I kind of talked a lot to the judges. I talked a lot about the room, a lot about the process. A lot of it was just kind of off the cuff in the moment type, type banter. And I think that's something that they really responded to. They kind of wanted the freedom of you being able to, like, they wanted to be able to know that they could confidently instill someone into the process if they were to put them in front of judges in that capacity. So,
right, because banter is a large part of that show on America's Got Talent. Do you remember the minute that you went into audition with that got you onto the show?
Oh man. I don't remember the exact minute, to be honest with you. I think I did like the GPS bit. I think I maybe did the drive-through bit, and maybe like the phone number bit, and that was it. And with that show, it's like you have to find material that is middle of the road enough that you're not going to isolate anybody, but is also still relatable in a way that people are people are people care about it. People are endeared to it. So, you know, for me, that was just, I became a target for myself. It's just like, oh, this is something that I've been doing for a while anyway. It's just being self-deprecating with it. So.
Yeah. And from, getting second place on America's Got Talent, after the show was done, is it night and day as far as the response and the bookings? Are you just, your calendar fill up immediately, you start seeing crowds, or you still have to work at it to continue to build your fan base?
I think people started to come out and see me more, which was great. But as far as your online audience and sustaining your career after the fact, that really falls to the artist. I mean, the show does a great job about being like, here's an introduction, but it does become up to you afterwards. Like after I did the show, I think I had like 80,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I was already doing a show every week on YouTube just to try and like keep people updated. Like I was doing that well before I even auditioned for the show. So it was nice to have had a backlog going into the season and acquiring, a good amount of followers in that way. But, the other subscribers that I had to do, that I had to try and build from doing stuff online, that was way after the fact. So, yeah, that's pretty much the process I would say for most comics on that show.
Well, and that's what it is. I think the takeaway in the story of Drew Lynch is the dedication and the resilience to set a goal and to work hard at it. So after suffering an injury that and included what seemed at the time a debilitating stutter, he switched gears from trying to be an actor in LA to starting stand-up comedy. Within years, only a few years, he was on one of the biggest stages in America, making it all the way to second place in America's Got Talent, and has had a thriving stand-up comedy career since. Amassing millions of fans and followers along the way. It's just such an amazing story that you have. And I'm sure that acting is still kind of on the docket, right? You're still kind of being like, well, now that I'm starting to build up this brand, baby, initially I had a dream. Now, were you like in your mind, were you a dramatic actor or a comedic actor or a little bit of everything?
I was annoying. I was just like, man, I'll do whatever. You know what I mean? I don't think I took myself too seriously, but I think every actor in some way does. So, yeah, I just loved it. It's the perfect, I'm pretty introverted in nature, and I think like doing something like that is like a nice fun way to still be in a setting among other people, but you don't have to really talk as any way other than what's demanded of you. So that was always what I was always drawn to as a kid. And as a kid, like I grew up I didn't have a lot of friends, so I grew up reading just like plays, and when I think about stand up now, I think about how much I write kind of in a similar way as how like somebody who's writing a script or a play would go about attacking a bit, so it's been really cool, like unforeseen things that kind of fell into place as to why I'm able to I do what I do. And I 100% think that acting is still in the queue for things on the future.
Oh, 100%. And it's so funny, too, because you're going to show up like, yeah, I mean, I might as well get into acting. While I'm here, I might as well go for the EGOT, right? You can see that happening.
Tony sounds nice.
Right. This is my friend Rico. Rico, you got a question for Drew before we let him go?
Oh, God. When's the rap album coming out?
Yeah.
No, I think just a comment. I mean, honestly, with all the accomplishments you've had, I think one of the most beautiful things to see is a very authentic fan base, too. Noticing on your TikTok, it's like they're all very avid, beautifully authentic followers. And that's something you don't see that much these days. So I'm like, that has to be something to be grateful for, too.
Yeah, I pay for my followers.
Same.
Yeah. Dude, I pay for your followers, too, man. It's getting exhausting.
I appreciate it, though.
I talk to Wells Fargo every week, and they're like, "You gotta keep doing this." I'm like, "I have to, man. I support him.
Yeah,
he's out there doing it." Yeah. Well, first of all, it's your birthday though, right, Rico?
Yeah.
Happy birthday, buddy. Yeah.
Woo!
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
That's so nice
birthday present.
That's a good present.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying that, but yeah, it's it's kind of cool. I think like especially if you can create a concept like you guys have with this show, I think one of the things that's so special about, any type of thing that you're doing where you bring people together. I know that sounds kitschy and lame or whatever, but I mean like when you have people who look forward to it and are responding to each other, not just to you, but to responding to each other in it. That's how you've kind of like bred some sense of community for what you're doing. That's how maybe there's evidence to support the idea that you're making a difference in some way.
Oh, absolutely. Ratings and things like that, for sure. I feel that. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out to talk with us. I know you're busy on the road, but we're definitely looking forward to your show at the Rialto Theater on Thursday, March 28th. It's a beautiful historic theater. I don't know if you've been there before, but that's a good room to do comedy too, because good amount of people, but great acoustics because it's also a music venue. So I think you're going to enjoy just even being out in Tucson, and we're definitely going to be enjoying seeing you live in action. You guys could join us at the Rialto Theater on March 28th. Get your tickets today, drewlynch.com or rialtotheater.com. It's as simple as that. Any other mentions you want to throw out there to our audience while we got you, Drew?
Yeah, actually, I have a podcast myself. It's called Did I Stutter? I do it every week. I talk about the video. I talk about like the city I just visited. I complain about my wife, and then I give out bad advice. It's silly.
Yes. Well, and honestly, your complaints and rants about your wife is amazing. I've been in, doing like morning radio. It's obviously problematic sometimes that my relationship will hear me kind of exaggerate or go on like a comedic rant. Do you ever get flack from your wife on some of your material, which is hilarious, but you talk about her ADHD and, made her essentially like part of your brand?
Yeah, well, I think first two things. I think one, a lot of people know like her pretty well, or they know like she and I are very active together on social media, and so people know where she stands with it. And then two, I always end up making fun of myself just as much as I end up making fun of her, making light of her, and I just always want to make sure that it's never coming from a place of intention is always has to be clear, and it never has the appearance of it being like, oh, this is malicious. It's always frustrated, not angry.
Yeah, I love it. Well, again, Drew Lynch, everybody, drewlynch.com to get those tickets for the Rialto Theater so you can see him live. You can follow him online on TikTok, on Instagram, on everywhere, actually. Hilarious content constantly being pushed out, and his weekly podcast. So I'll make sure you follow him. We put all the links in the podcast broadcast stream so you could be able to follow him simply just by clicking on that. We're going to hit the reset, be back with more with Beef Vegan Presents right after this. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA. Again, thank you so much, Drew. I appreciate you taking so much time to hang out with us, and look forward to seeing you when you get down to Tucson.